You see, people, knowledgeable people, have continued to insist that the system that is operated by, okay, or the style, or I don't know, the operation of Mieti Allah, insisting that their members will carry cattle and move from place to place, apart from being a cake, it's not even productive. It's counterproductive, so to say. Now, what that means is that we have been seeing the quality of cattle they've been coming up with. It's not anything comparable. You can compare to what's going on in Sena climes. It is the quality and the meat, the quality of meat and the production is even very low. And I would rather expect this government to start thinking about things in this direction, start thinking in this direction in the area of the development of agriculture and food security to handle it. But they are not doing that. So what would they do to this man? I don't think they will do anything to this man.
Do you agree with that?
Well, we have precedents in this country. You know, we've had the Nnamdi Kanu issue. We've had what's the name of this guy from the southwest? Igboho. And we now have this. But listen, there's something in this trend which I needed to, you know, observe. Do you know that if we have a president from the southeast today, Nnamdi Kanu will be released?
Sure.
Now, why didn't the government of President Buhari sue the president of Mieti Allah to court?
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? Then how come Igboho is released and all the cases dropped when President Tinubu is in government? The underlying factor is that we have prioritized ethnicity against the security of this country. So there's a compromise to where I come from than what we are as a country. And that is why the Mieti Allah thing would have gone, you know, unabated for the 8 years of President Buhari. How come we didn't think about charging him to court? Now, Nnamdi Kanu's case is still subsisting. But if Peter Obi were to be the president today, every charges against Nnamdi Kanu would have been dropped. Just the way we have that of Igboho dropped.
That one also is an assumption. You're speaking not factually, but based on precedents that you have observed.
But it's a fact now.
No, you cannot say if Peter Obi, because Peter Obi is not the president and Nnamdi Kanu is.
How do we have empirical facts? You have to look at the history.
What's been going on?
What you still said is a postulation.
Yes, I postulated
okay.
Based on the realities and the trend. I have given you instances here. Okay, look at the issue of Niger Delta militants. When Goodluck Jonathan became president, it started from Yaradua, of course. But when Goodluck Jonathan became president, that's when all of this whole let's charge the militants and everything dropped. So we are prioritizing where we come from against who we are as a people. And that's segmentation. And until we stop or desist from that, we're going to continue to have security challenges in this country. Look at what's happening today. We have the Niger Delta Development Commission. What are they doing? We have the Northeast Development Commission. What are they doing? And I hear that in the Senate, it has passed second reading on the Southeast Development Commission. And very soon, we're going to have the Southwest Development Commission. So what is the essence of having state governors where you still call for regional governments and then funds from the federating account is pumped into those commissions? And then we still have governors, we still have assembly, we still have local government. This is duplicity of responsibility. And these are avenues of leaks in our system. The same applies to the security. This ethnic sentiment is not going to solve our problem. Listen, in our respective states today, we have the same thing as vigilante groups. Who approved the formation? In River State, there are some local governments that have specific vigilante groups. If you go to Onega local government, they have vigilantes. Yeah. If you go to Eche local government, they have vigilantes. In Kana, where I come from, I don't see vigilantes. But if you go to this other aspect of River State, you're going to see vigilantes. How did they form it? Who did they seek approval from? Who approved the formation of those vigilantes? Those vigilantes, are they not the same thing as Meeti Allah? So if we can sue Meeti Allah, we can sue those vigilantes. And what necessitates the formation of vigilantes? It's because the security architecture is compromised. So if there's need for us to employ more police, we should. If there's need for us to employ more military guys, we should. Then we jettison these local arrangements. And then we know that whatever we're doing is legitimate. I do not support Meeti Allah. I do not support the ideologies. I personally feel it's archaic for you to be moving around with cows. They defecate on the road, cause traffic, damage people's properties, invade farms and eat people's crops. So I do not support it. We should have a ranching system, for Christ's sake, where we have decent, well-fed cows, that their health will be checked. The cows we have today and we're eating, we don't know their health status. We don't. So I do not support their ideology, but we must recall that at the formation, because this Meeti, they also claim that at the launching of this vigilante group, the past administration, letters were sent to the presidency. They had representatives from the presidency in the launching of that group. Okay. So you're seeing the kind of compromise. And you know, that is why it is not surprising that the ranching thing didn't work under Buhari. Yes. That is why it's not also surprising that we didn't have the government of President Buhari file charges against Meeti Allah.
For their crimes.
Because he is Fulani. And a lot of these persons are Fulani. So we are compromising our security as a people to the advantage of where we come from. Because persons who are leading these agitations at some point are coming from where we're coming from. And why is Nigeria not holistically looking at the interests of the federation? Such that people will have to come up with agitations at all times.
Okay.
The Southeasterners are saying, look, we are the business hub in this country. We have a right to produce the president of this country. Why are the political parties not giving us opportunity to produce a president? This was the same agitation we had in the South. And it was part of the negotiations we made. That, look, we must produce a president because this is the oil base of the nation. And the strength of our economy is lying on the oil that we produce, so we needed a president from the South. Now, what forms the basis of those agitations? It is because people wanted equity, justice, and fairness. So every government that comes into place, whether the president is from the north, east, west, or south, you must ensure that there is all-round justice. There's equity and fairness. No lopsided appointments. Because these are the basis of which people advocate. You say, oh, in this place, they say, in Buhari's government, the east, we were not favored. We didn't get projects. We didn't get appointments. Now, President Tinubu's government is here. People are saying the bulk of the appointment is coming from the south.
All right.
And so these are the things that forms the basis for agitations and call for equality.
All right.
And if we don't eliminate it, we're going to have security challenges. Okay. Because where there's injustice, there's always the insecurity.
Yeah. All right. Sure. Federal government suspends student loan scheme. When we come back from this break, we'll look into the story. Do not go away.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today. Only ATM.
People into the country illegally. That is amazing.
Honorable
you human trafficker.
Honorable they are not picking our calls. They made up their minds.
So no agreement with the EU, but
The presidency on Wednesday explained that the student loan scheme slated to be launched on March 14th was put off in order to put final touches to it. The presidency also assured that President Bola Tinubu is fully committed to the loan scheme, as it would guarantee that indigent students did not drop out of school due to lack of money. Recall that the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, Akintunde Sawyer, had announced the indefinite postponement of the scheme on Tuesday. Fielding questions from State House correspondents after the Federal Executive Council meeting presided over by President Tinubu at the Council Chamber, Presidential Villa, Abuja, the Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Mr. Bayo Onunaga, stated that final touches are being put in place to enable proper launch of the scheme, which he described as the President's flagship program. He assured that a new date will be announced soon. According to him, there will be a new date to launch the student loan scheme. It's not forgotten. There are some things that need to be rearranged so that it can be launched properly. I think that's what's happening. Now, he finished his statement by saying, I think that is what is happening, which means he's not even very sure of what is happening. And do not forget that this student loan scheme has already been announced as being postponed indefinitely. Perhaps the federal government is coming out to further explain themselves over reactions from people, because I mean a lot of students were hoping that this will happen. And then, as at last year, when the presidency was talking about the appropriation bill, and they said the appropriation bill was going to be full circle budget. Now, they also said they were expecting the student loan scheme to launch immediately as well, run full circle, because of course school resumes fully in January. And up until now, it's still dragging, and against the expectations of a lot of students and also Nigerian parents right now who are facing serious hardship, the government is coming out to say it has been suspended indefinitely. Now they are explaining it, trying to water it down, but also not giving Nigerians a date when it will, take off fully. But then, this is the background of what has happened with respect to the student loan scheme. What do you have to say to this, Mr. Dumezo? I want to get your reaction to this.
First to Bayo Onanuga, rather, he should understand that he didn't speak as a common Nigerian. He spoke in his capacity as an aide to the president on strategic communication. And so when you're speaking to the people, it is believed that you're speaking from an informed position. It's unacceptable to come to tell Nigerians to say, I think that's what's happening. You should, if you didn't have what to say as authorized by the presidency, confirming the true situation of things, you shouldn't have said it. You can decline comment on it. So coming from that angle, appears as though the government is not organized, which I do not believe. So I think he needs to watch that angle. And secondly, when you talk about the loan, I strongly believe that I support the suspension, even though I don't know the reason behind it. But I think
final touches.
Yes, final touches, and I trust that the government must have learned from several schemes they tried to unveil without proper planning. One of the things I believe was expedient to leave was a subsidy. But I also believe strongly that we would have put in place measures to mitigate what the effect would be. And so I believe that the president has learned from that and his administration, and they wouldn't want to rush into a scheme without having a proper plan. You remember the direct cash transfer program also had also been on suspension, and then of course the N-Power program. Because any policy of government must be sustainable. It will be wrong for government to start up what they cannot continue. So they must look at their projections, and of course in trying to beat the leaks in the system, which of course is evident from the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, that funds were going to private accounts. Government want to ensure that they keep a clean face with the people, and those who are due to have this get them, especially the student community, because they form a bulk of our voting population. So I think that it will be best for government to rather postpone and plan better and come up with something that is more sustainable and meaningful than to rush into the program and then along the line we begin to discover lapses that would affect, you know, the beneficiaries of this program and then of course the full implementation.
Okay. Now, Mr. Samuel, the government is postponing this because they want to put some final touches to this. The question is, why come up with a scheme when it's not properly thought through? Why come up with a scheme? Announce it to Nigerians. Even announce the date for implementation when it has not been properly thought through. What does that say about, you know, the government in place, not just this government, but previous governments?
To my mind, it is the problem that is with governments in Nigeria, successive governments, not just this one. You know, now the beauty of having strong institutions is that one program of government is supposed to come up with a result that will feed another program of government, and there will be cohesion. You understand? But what we have seen with successive governments in this country, we have not seen it like that. If you're having a student's loan, scheme, a student's loan scheme is supposed to effectively, just like the president said, you know, something that is a condition that will make it easy or make it easier for Nigerian students so that people no longer drop out of schools because they could not fund their education. Now that's beautiful. Trust me, Nigerians are ready to go to school. And they are in their millions. You understand? And now, in the first place, the students' loan scheme, why did they have to come up with it? I agree with the suspension because in the first place, it
wasn't going to be practicable.
The problem is not practicable. Now, Nigerians are suffering and smiling. They know that there are no jobs anywhere for them. So most of the students we have now, they have a mindset. They are beginning to think of what they can do when they leave school and things like that. Some of them are thinking, if I get a degree, then I move to Europe, whatever that means. Now, we have a situation where we are not thinking of strengthening institutions for them to do the work they are supposed to do. When you throw money into that loan scheme for children to go to school, and you're doing that to make it so easy for them. You know, remember, it is a loan scheme. The loan is supposed to be paid back. You understand? Mm-hmm. If they come out of school, they become gainfully employed. They start paying back. That is exactly what we hear is happening in places like United States. They come back, they come out, and in that case, in that place, everything is monitored. There is coercion. The day you start to, you had a loan, the day you start to work in the United States as you come out of school, they know you have started working. They know how they'll be doing their deductions. Are you telling me that system, that it will work like that in Nigeria presently? I don't think it will. So just throwing money to a system because I think these programs are just populist programs.
All right. Mr. Dumezo, you wanted to respond?
You know, I think the loan thing is a good idea, you know, but it reviews our situation as a country. Before now, we usually have scholarships, and scholarships are free. You just go to school, and then, of course, you finish, and that's it. But over time, we've observed some kind of challenges. Number one is that the economy is very unstable right now for government to be able to afford scholarships, which makes a lot of sense. Number two is that most of the persons who had gone through scholarships in this country, they end up leaving the country. So it's like you invest in people and they take your investment out of the country. They don't find jobs, so they have to leave to where they can get greener pastures.
Is it their fault?
No, it's not their fault entirely, but it still boils down to government. So at the end of the day, it's a wasteful endeavor.
Okay.
Look at Rivers State, where we had what's it called? There's a government policy at the time, RSSDA.
Yeah.
They were sending Rivers indigents abroad to school.
Yeah.
A lot of them didn't come back. So, but now there's what ought to be is that government ought to sit down and think. The problem I have is that government sets the agenda, politicians rather, set the agenda, not institutions. That's the big problem with Nigeria. Institutions are supposed to set the agenda.
Yes.
When policies are implemented, they are supposed to review it, check the lapses, and give a feedback on how they can advance. Any government that comes into place works along paths that suggestion given by the institutions. But you know what the problem is? When a government comes in, they damn the policies of the previous administration, forgetting government is a continuum, and then they come up with their own policies, and then the institutions are forced to now change and readapt. This change and readapting time is part of the problem that we are having. And that's why I see that our economic projections are just unstable, because government comes and damns everything that the previous administration, for instance, Rivers said the monorail that was invested in by the previous administration. The first administration has gone, this one is in, they're not saying anything about it.
The first administration called it a white...
You know, and that's Rivers money put in there. You see that? So we have to think. Now, in this loan scheme, it is a good idea. I applaud it. Because government would not just have to waste money and then it goes like that. But another thing we have to look at, and I believe in the possibility. Because have you seen people who borrow money from all of these apps company? People borrow money and they deduct it. They follow you through and get their money. That's why we have the NIM system. That's why we have the BVN. And that's why there's a synchronization, so that you don't have a duplicated personality. Your information from BVM and NIM tells whom you are, some really. So you cannot fake your identity. And it's an advanced system. So if these loans are given to students, we know your identity. We know the account you use.
The basis for the loan is that you have to have someone at, I think, level 16 or thereabouts or higher in civil service to be able to, the person will have to guarantee.
Yes.
That person has to be your guarantor or your shorty as a...
What if the person retires tomorrow?
The question now is, the thing is, if anybody that signs as your guarantor, invariably the person is going to pay when the time given has elapsed and you don't. So the government will either start cutting from the person's salary or the person's gratuity or the pension. Or so. But what happens is the government wants persons that they are in control of their finances, right? Now, if that is the case, then limited people, because why would my uncle, that's the question, what relationship does my uncle have with my father or my mother or even my elder sister or my younger sister? Why would my uncle leave his children to be... Yes, to be a guy.
No, it's fine, because
there are so many intrigues around it that the government is depending on that particular
angle. It's not enough.
It's not enough, but at the same time, it also cuts off help from a lot of people, because a lot of people will not be able to access these loans because they don't have people. They don't have people at that level.
Yes,
right?
And I think that's where there needs to be an adjustment to review. All right, because some persons, you must be able to, while you're planning for that, government is not just about the carrot and stick approach. You must be able, on the long run, plan for unemployment. And that's why I have said consistently that what are we doing with our NYSC? Government pays them statutory money of 35 or 30,000 every month, right? And what is their productivity level? I'm not saying the scheme is not good, but this is my concern. Why don't we have factories? Because the NYSC has streams. Why don't we have a production factory in each of the states where persons who are doing the NYSC are channeled into that production factory and they work for 1 year and they are being paid? Now, the products or produces from those factories are sold to get money because the weight is so much on government. For instance, if you're a student and you get the student loan, you are now bound to move from graduation into service. And it must be with the Nigerian embassy that you cannot travel until this loan is fully paid. So we now know that you're within the confines of Nigeria. Except death, you are alive, you must pay that loan. Do you understand? Right. So if you graduate from school into NYSC, we now have a part deduction from what you're supposed to be paying. You're supposed to be paid as NYSC. And then secondly, your production, there are sales from the production in the factory to also bring back into the system, into the sustenance of these factories that will be in the 36 states, maintenance, and also stipends. You know, so government needs to be holistic. We have what it takes to have this work. Because let me tell you something, if people are not able to go to school, you're going to cut our economic lifespan as a people. Yeah, so the loan is good. Government must think through and come up with something tangible and explain to the public and make it available. It's a good idea. I love it.
Okay. The federal government on Wednesday said it has commenced the distribution of the 42,000 metric tons of grains in the 7 focal points of the state capital of the northwestern states. The Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Senator Abubakar Kyari, disclosed this while briefing State House correspondents at the end of the Federal Executive Council meeting, presided over by President Bola Tinubu at the Council Chamber Presidential Villa, Abuja. Kyari, who declines to give details of the distribution of the grains as a result of what he described as security reasons, said that the Federal Government of Agriculture and Food Security is currently working with the Office of the National Security Advisor, Malam Nuhu Ribadu, and other national security outfits to address the risk involved in vandalization of food warehouses across the country. According to him, we are distributing to state capitals in the first instance as we are all aware of the risk involved in the vandalization of foodstuff. So we are working with the Office of the National Security Advisor and other national security agencies. So federal government has started distribution of 42,000 metric tons of rice, of grains in the northwest. And this is in line with helping Nigerians, you know, with the current hunger crisis in the country, as the presidency has promised. So now, the issue right now is not necessarily giving out the grains. Now, the issue right now, from what the presidency is saying, is the vandalization of these warehouses. And as a result, even the presidency is unwilling to say much about the sharing scheme and all of that, because possibly, but the truth remains that you can't hide these warehouses from them, because people live around these places. So working with the security agencies, is it enough?
Well, I first would want to commend the federal government, commend them for the steps. We are seeing visible steps, practical steps that's been taken by this government to set the tone for a better economy. The grain distribution is not a new thing. The past administrations also did it, you know, but after the supply, we didn't see what came out of the grains that were distributed. We didn't see the yields, you know, if it was actually planted and what came out, you know. So it's not enough for federal government to just do a charity to give out grains. There should be an insistence to have a return on investment. If we're supplying grains, then we must have a way to look and see that those grains had a multiplication. They were planted and they had yields. Speaking about the security issues, it was in the Federal Capital Territory that a warehouse was invaded. It was vandalized. Vandalized to the core. We saw on TV how that people bore holes into the warehouses and carted away with every seed of grain in those storages. How did that happen? In the FCT. Until today, nobody has been arrested. So it tells you the level of compromise in the system. And I'm sure that there were security teams allocated to that facility. Where are the security people? You know, how did that happen and nobody was arrested? And up to today, we cannot say what's happening. But then again, it tells you the level of hunger that is in Nigeria today. So there's a need. We have gotten to that point where we will now use police and possibly military to escort grains, you know, to warehouses, it tells you the level of hunger is huge. You know, it's really huge. And how are you even sure that the farmers you're going to give the grains will not eat it as against planting it? You know, say it's a holistic approach we have to look at. But then I would suggest that we have what we call school to land in almost every state, where federal government was given large, vast lands in each of the states, almost in all of the local governments in each of the states. Those lands are lying fallow. They are not being used. So why can't we have federal government, instead of just distributing these grains, designate it to these farms and say, okay, we're distributing these grains to these farms in Rivers State, in Lagos State, in Kwara, in Kaduna. And then it goes straight to the farms and they plant. And then we actually monitor these grains, grow into crops, and then harvest the produces. Because those school to land lands are vast and they are lying fallow. Okay. But this given to people, you cannot monitor. Right. And you don't even know if they eat it, because the hunger is affecting even the farmer.
All right.
So,
Mr. Samuel, Mr. Samuel, sad situation. But then let's look at, you know, precedents. During the COVID-19 time, palliatives were given out, you know, to Nigerians, and it was given out to certain. It was some persons were put in charge of sharing these palliatives.
Yes.
And shortly after COVID-19, it was discovered, by the way, some warehouses were discovered where these palliatives were stored, and at some point, for some warehouses, they were already branded, lying there, waiting for elections to be used for campaign. Now, when you look at these precedents, it might be concerning right now. How is the government going to share these grains to make sure that the people who deserve it actually get it, and the people who are in charge of sharing these grains do not hoard them for personal use?
Well, just like you said, it has almost become a trend, and there are cases, you know, things that happened in the past, and right now Nigerians do not know what is going to happen next. And I tell you, you see why, apart from the fact that we have serious problem of insecurity, one of the reasons why you see Nigerians do the things they do sometimes, like, you know, Nigerians becoming so bold as to break into facilities, warehouses, to cut away things like that, in that manner. It's because they've had an experience before now. If they say, like when just like you mentioned, the COVID-19 palliatives that came, rather than for government or the politicians to do what they were supposed to do with it, give it to the people, they hoarded them, put them inside warehouses, and were ready to use it for reasons other than the reason for which it was distributed in the first place. So people will say, the first thing that will come to their mind, if we do not break into these places and collect these grains, politicians will keep it for themselves and share it among themselves and all that and all that. But I think that it all boils down to what we have been saying here. The institutions are weak. If grains are brought to River State, it is not the governor that will come out to share grains. Do you understand? But even the institutions that are weak, some of them, they become that weak by design. I'm telling you, if I'm a commissioner and I go to a place and and there is a system that's going on that's supposed to follow a particular course, the moment they see my face, they say, the commissioner is here. So what will they do? They will either favor the commissioner, or they favor the people that know the commissioner. Nobody asks them to do it. It could even be that I am the type that don't care about things like that, or doesn't want things like that. But because I'm there, I service. You know, the problem of not having strong institutions is so much so that people just naturally tend to do the wrong thing just to favor somebody that is at the helm of affairs, or that is highly placed. But it is wrong. Okay, what can they do to ensure that these grains get to the right people? The institutions do not have any system put in place that will enable them to identify farmers or the people that the grains are supposed to get to and take the grains to them. If they have such a thing in place, it will be easier for them. Like the Minister of Agriculture under Goodluck Jonathan, Dr. Akinwumi Additional, he did something. Maybe you remember what happened to the e-wallet system with the case of fertilizers. That was what he did. He did that e-wallet system in a way that the fertilizers get to the farmers and not through some people, like gather it here, invite people and share it for them. The fertilizers were getting to the farmers.
All right.
So those are some of the things that they have to think of, how to come up with a system that will get these things to the people.
Okay.
And it's only institutions that can do it.
All right. Youths of the southwest region of Nigeria have vowed to do everything possible to resist President Bola Tinubu's mandate for all the state governors to provide land for herdsmen in their states for grazing. Recall that President Tinubu has mandated all state governors to provide grazing land for herdsmen, stressing that the provision of grazing land for herders will end the violent clashes between farmers and herders and the loss of lives and farm produce. The Yoruba Nation Southwest Youth Leader, Comrade Oyegunle Oluwamayowa Omotoyole, in a statement issued on Wednesday, described Fulani herders as murderers, rapists, and national thieves who have caused a huge and sad loss of human lives in the Southwest. Omotoyole said the herders are known for sexual harassment, acquisition of dangerous weapons and arms, reduction in quality of community social relationships, and reduction of social supports with high cases of rape. Vowing that the Southwest youth will do everything to resist giving Fulani herders grazing land in the region, Omotoyole said, "We are aware of your recent speech where you said that each state governor in Nigeria should find land for Fulani herdsmen to graze their cattle in their state in order for peace to reign in Nigeria. Please permit me to remind you, sir, maybe you have quickly forgotten what these herdsmen have done in the Southwest to our farmers in Yoruba land. These herdsmen have caused a huge and sad loss of human lives in the Southwest. Added on top of it is sexual harassment, acquisition of dangerous weapons and arms, reduction in quality of human community social relationship, reduction of social support with high cases of rape, while the economic effects of the menace of Fulani herdsmen are still biting the people. Fulani herdsmen are responsible for thousands of deaths in Nigeria's Middle Belt, Southwest, Southeast, and mostly the terror attacks committed against Christians and traditional community farmers. Being the president and commander-in-chief of the country, you are fully aware of these atrocities and the complications the Fulani's new land takeover style of cow rearing brings. He said, the Fulani herdsmen farmers have given rise to conflicts that have created food insecurity, food scarcity, distrust, and unemployment. If you continue with your plan to force the Fulani on our land, there is the future risk of serious tribal wars with the Fulanis because you now approve their evil deeds, giving them a legal reason to carry on in the name of cattle grazing and selling the country to them. Let me start with you, Mr. Dumezo. Without much ado, what is your take on the youths of the Southwest resisting the presidential order to all 36 governors to make land available for the herdsmen to graze their cattle?
Well, it's within their rights to do so. You know, one thing you can't take from people is their experiences, and their experience forms their perspective and, of course, the opinion. And the young man had given instances of what's happening in the Southwest, you know, and the late Akeredolu, former governor of Ondo State, we saw how he fought so hard, you know, against this whole Fulani thing. And I think that it's not enough for Mr. President to say, okay, give land, allocate land, you know, for cattle rearers. It's not enough. I think that we must, in adopting an international model, we must take cognizance of our local situation, analyze our local situation, and see how to pattern the international model to, you know, work in our local circumstances. In Nigeria today, there are sentiments and there are shared opinion of the Fulanis trying to take over, you know, wherever they find themselves. And of course, we all have heard that the Fulanis are not really Nigerians. They come from Niger and neighboring countries. But they are predominant in our country today. And that once they get to a place to settle, they want to take control of that place. And now you now have something like Hausa community in Rivers State, Hausa community in local governments. All right, so we must understand the sentiments of every local. And if we're adopting a system, we must understand the local situation and see how to pattern. What I would have suggested is that, number one, against what the youth leader had said, you know, when you keep these people at a place, you take them away from the widespread in the community. It is when they access the farms and they see women vulnerable and they take advantage of them. But if they are within a confine in a place, they won't be in the communities. Do you understand? It's when they are taking their cows run and they go to a farm, they say, oh, one single girl, only you. They take advantage of it. But if they are within a confined, it will also address their access to the communities and to people. So it's a good strategy to keep them to a place. But what I would suggest further is that to deal with the cultural practices and to optimize production, we must have to bring in a system that would eradicate our patterns. And that means that if we have, for instance, in Rivers State, we have one settlement for cattle rearing, we should auction that settlement to a private company. If we auction it to a private company, the private company now works with the owners of the cows within that cattle ranching settlement. So you see, they deal with them as a private sector with individuals who have their investment within that locality.
And now we have control.
Yes, they have control. There's security there. There's a standard to keep within the ranching system. So if government does that way, in Rivers State, we have a central place for ranching. You're going to see that we know that, okay, it is a Dunlop and so company that handles, just the way we have decentralization of the power management in the country. Do you know that in Rivers State or in Lagos State, the cattle ranching settlement is being handled by so company? They are responsible for whatever goes on within there. That also breaks the ranks of cultural domination and practices. And when there's an interface between a private company and individuals who have their investment within that settlement, they'll come up, not even government, the companies will come up with modalities that will help them manage the place to a standard because they want to make profit. And the ratio of productivity is what brings back to the company. So government is not involved in how much they generate. Government now takes tax from them. Government now regulates generally the operations of ranching.
Right.
You know, so I think that's the best thing to do. It's not enough to say state government provide. It's going to lead us into a lot more catastrophe.
Oh, okay. Now, you're smiling, Mr. Samuel. Let me hear your thoughts on this matter.
I would like to be a lot more. Look, I want to ask a question.
Okay.
Is there a law? Is there a place in the Constitution that says certain people, you know, must carry cows from one place to another, you know, causing nuisance, destroying people's properties, and why can't we think of best practices? Why are we doing what we are doing and we complain that our economy is not doing well? That in places like Netherlands, they don't have oil. This same cattle we are talking about is part of the things they do mostly. I've done a bit of a research about what they are doing and how institutions, you know, take time and put effort in coming up with what have become the standard for the world in Europe, that the thing, why are we not doing that in Nigeria? What is wrong with it? The quality of the cattle that we are getting from this nomadic style is so poor. We don't. Do you know that pig milk? Eating now is almost how much? Maybe 1,000 naira thereabout. So why are we doing what we are doing? Why are we not thinking about ranching, just like you said it? Why are we not thinking about it? Why must we talk about give them land? Give the land from where? Whose land?
State government.
Whose land? Now, do not forget, there are the youths raised a vital question, a very vital point about their security.
Yes.
You understand? The pillaging, the murders, the killing, the acts of terror.
But that's why the settlement is important.
Now, that's the thing.
Yes,
when
then
when there is a settlement, now, if they are, they are nomadic people, if they are on the move and they are able to cause this level of catastrophe, if they are now settled in an organized system and more people migrate to join them, at some point it's going to be a community, a village of its own. Don't you think there'll be uprising? Because they raised a concern about tribal wars coming up.
That forms the basis for my suggestion. And I said,
have you forgotten? Let me also remind you. Not too long ago, a few days back, the herders, killed some farmers in Edo State, and some police officers, about 19 of them, were sent into the forest to bring calm to the whole situation, and those officers did not return alive.
Yes.
As at the time the report was being made, 9 decomposing bodies have been found, not one single arrest.
Police officers.
Yes.
What did we call it? We call it a forest.
And one single
arrest
has been made.
Yes.
How many times have you heard, Mr. Dumezo, that herdsmen, these bandits, killing people, let me not just say herdsmen, let's categorize them, the criminal-minded herdsmen who do these killings and all that. How many times have you ever heard that any of them have been arrested, they have been convicted, right? Have you ever heard that?
On what basis would they arrest a man moving on the street with cows? That's the problem, and that's why I suggested.
On what basis? The question you ask is not just about moving on the street with cows. We are talking about killing.
Yes, unrestrained access. That's the problem. That's why I'm saying. Yes, I am a proponent that there should be ranching. There should be a settlement. And I said in adopting an international model, we must understand our local situation. And part of our local situation is that when these persons settle in a place, you hear Hausa community and all of them, they want to have a chief. They want to have traditional ruler. They want to have, the same tiers that we have in established communities.
They are nomads.
Now, what I'm suggesting is that when you have a ranching settlement, you hand over to kill off that cultural practice that can cause a compromise. Hand it over, that settlement, to an investment company, a private sector. Just we have industrial layouts. All right, for instance, in Port Harcourt, in Transamadi, we have the industrial layouts. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes. And there are different companies within that industrial layout. So if we have a settlement for ranching, it takes these persons out of the communities. This place will be fenced. Do you understand? And under a private arrangement, in a competitive economy, you see that the private sector drives it, and they want to be their best. And they are proving records. We have the banking sector today. We see the competition in the banking sector. We have the telecommunication sector. See the competition. Unbundle this sector. That's what I'm saying. When you unbundle it and hand it over to private sector, each settlement is allocated to a private company. They want to build it to standards. And if you must operate within that ranching settlement, the company will profile you. They will know where you're coming from. They will know everything about you.
How will the company have background of the killings and the murders a certain person may have committed?
It is within that settlement. So they have a security system. There are cameras everywhere. They allocate and apportion the land to this person. And it could be done with nets. We can say, okay, for Mr. Madi, this is the number of cattle you must have to feature here. You must have 100 cattle. In that 100 cattle, the place is segmented with a net. Within this area is your portion. Inside the settlement, within this area is your portion. We have security cameras, we have lights, we have a company managing that settlement. That way, you will not have something like we want the chief of this settlement. We want a traditional ruler of this settlement. When it's time to vote, we can allocate polling units into that ranching settlement. But because a company is in charge, before you come into the place, they profile you. The company decides what happens within that territory, in line with the regulations of government. Not just opening a settlement and giving it to Hausa people to just enter. They will store arms there. They can plan a war from there. But if we hand over that settlement to a company, just the way we have the Southeast Electricity Company, Port Harcourt Electricity Company and all of that, you have the Port Harcourt Ranching Company. And you have different companies with a stake there. If you do it that way, it will eliminate the cultural patterns and practices. Okay. And all of these fears will be eliminated. But if you don't do it that way, if these people keep moving, and even in our education sector, go and check the books we read when we were in primary school. They ask you, what is a nomadic? All of those things are in our education. That means we patterned our education to accommodate this system. Right. So we have to change it. You go to the school, the books you read in primary school, they said define a nomad, a nomadic, you know, they move, they say there are people that move around with cows on the street. That's the definition. So we have to change that definition and pattern our education to adopt what is more modern. Okay. And if we do it in this pattern, all of these fears and concerns being raised will be eliminated.
Quickly, let's just look at this last story. Let's look at this. We just have 2 minutes. President Bola Tinubu has directed the reopening of Nigeria's land and air borders with the Republic of Niger. He also ordered the lifting of other sanctions against the country with immediate effect. A statement by the president's media aide, Ajuri Ngelale, noted that the directive was in compliance with the decisions of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government at its extraordinary summit on February 24, 2024 in Abuja. Recall that ECOWAS leaders had agreed to lift economic sanctions against the Republic of Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea. Tinubu also lifted the suspension of all commercial and financial transactions between Nigeria and Niger, as well as freeze of all service transactions, including utility services and electricity, to Niger Republic. Now, what do you? Let me start with you.
No, start with me. I want to show you something. Look at the border. Look at how I don't know if they can show back that on the screen. See Nigerian border. See how porous it is. Even just see how porous it is. Even in our neighborhood where you share, you know, a plot of land with your neighbor, the fence is better. See Nigerian border. Just see. Even if there's a policeman in this border, if I give him 500 naira, he will open this place and I will bring in any arms I want. You see Nigerian and Niger border.
Have you seen
so how did we close the border? We instructed military to stay there, not so, and not allow anybody passing from Niger. Let me tell you, people were the people that are there, they are uncles and relatives to the same people. So we're just joking too much in this country.
Joke too much.
This is not a border.
Exactly.
We should go to America and see the difference between the Mexican and American border and know what we are doing. So porous. You know, but in any ways, this is in compliance with the decision taken by ECOWAS. Yeah. But it is ridiculous to call that a border.
Opinion, in the first place, there was no closure of border.
There is no border in the first place.
What you see right now, that by the border you see.
I mean, a clear instance is between the president is in Aso Rock now. See how fenced Aso Rock is now. All of us, we live in compounds. See the fence between our compound and the next neighbor. So what border is this one?
You're expecting a wall of...
No. You see, the point is, we joke too much. I'm glad you brought that up. We joke too much here. You see the border between Nigeria and Canada. I mean, I'm sorry, between the US, America and Canada. I mean, these are two countries that are so friendly. You see the border, you see their border post and the way it's organized and all that. We joke too much. The truth is, the ECOWAS heads of state, they tried to do something, but they found out that the young men who took over these countries in recent times, we are not even looking at them. It was like, work with us or you lose us.
Yes.
And so they just knew that it is just better to let them be. We are not taking, we will not be taking instructions from France. It's wrong. So for me, I think the president voicing it that that border has been opened, for me, it's a good thing. Let it just be that formally. Let's formalize it. And say
the borderless border
has been opened. So has been opened. So that
in your opinion, gentlemen, there was no border.
The borderless border is opened.
And you remember that that President Muhammadu Buhari actually favored your opinion. They were borderless. It was like, you know, people.
We constructed a road to Niger now.
Yes, Niger, Chad, they should just be coming in because that's actually some of the conditions that's feeding the problem of this nomadic of insecurity and the herdsmen and all that.
All right. Okay. This is where we wrap it up on this episode of Blowout. Do not forget, you can always stay connected and also follow us on all our socials, Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok, Atlantic TV Network 1, Twitter, Atlantic TV Net. Watch us live on our website, www.atlanticnetwork.tv. Do not forget, peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Thank you, Mr. Dumezo, for joining us on this show today.
Always a privilege.
And thank you, Mr. Samuel. It's always a pleasure having both of you.
Thank you, Laurentia.
I am Ogu Laurentia Choma. Do not go away. Open Conversation comes up next.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today. Only on ATN.
People into the country illegally. That is amazing.
Honorable
You human
On the point of order.
Honorable They are not picking our calls. They made up their mind.
So no agreement with the EU, but